here we are in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We made our long journey from the great state of Texas, and we actually left yesterday and got here plenty early because the media said the traffic would be horrendous. There was no traffic, so we got here plenty early, but we're very grateful. And we found a nice spot here in Allensville, Kentucky, where we're going to see the first transcontinental solar eclipse that has happened in 99 years. So we're really looking forward to that, and we're just in the process of getting our equipment set up. And the eclipse it'll begin in just under an hour, and then this is actually a nice spot because it's very close to where the eclipse actually reaches its maximum, where its duration will be the longest, which is for this eclipse is about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. That's for the actual moments of totality, where the physical surface of the sun, the photosphere, will be completely blocked by the moon for that length of time. Eclipses can last only up to about 7.5 minutes. That's the maximum theoretical length for an eclipse. And so this one's not one of the best, but it's the first I've seen, and so I'm really looking forward to it. And we're going to try to document it, and we'll post this later, and hope you guys will enjoy it. So we're going to get to see a total solar eclipse, and that's very rare. Actually, total solar eclipses happen pretty often, okay? But it's for a given spot on the Earth. They don't happen that often. In fact, if you were just going to pick a random spot on Earth and just wait, it would be about 400 years before statistically you'd get a total solar eclipse. So you got to go to see one. But the nice thing about this one is it's in the United States, and we didn't have to travel that far. I know it seemed like it, but we didn't have to travel that far to get here. So here we are in Kentucky, and the moon's going to move. Of course, the moon's orbiting around the Earth, and it orbits around the Earth's, most moons orbit around their planet's equator. Our moon doesn't. It's the exception. It orbits around the ecliptic, which is the path that the Earth orbits around the sun. Okay? But it's actually, the moon's actually just a little bit tilted. The moon's orbit is tilted 5 degrees from the ecliptic. And if it weren't, you'd get an eclipse every month, because every time the moon would come exactly in between the Earth and the sun, you get an eclipse, okay? But because it's tilted 5 degrees, the moon usually skips a little bit above the sun or a little bit below, depending on where it is in its orbit, okay? And so every now and then, though, we have what's called they call the nodes of the orbit. The nodes are the places where the moon's orbit, and I'm exaggerating it, okay, so it's like that, and then the Earth's orbit around the sun like that, where they intersect, that's a node. Okay. And so that you can see they intersect at 2 points. And twice every year, those nodes will line, because the Earth's orbiting around the sun, twice every year those nodes will line up with the sun. And then you will get an eclipse if the moon is if it's at one of those nodes at the time. And if it's at the one towards the sun, you get a solar eclipse. If it's at the one away from the sun, you get a lunar eclipse, where Earth's shadow falls on the moon. I've seen a bunch of lunar eclipses, and they're pretty neat as well. Cool. But to see a solar eclipse, though, it's not just that it has to happen. You have to be under the shadow. And there are two shadows that the moon has. It has kind of an outer nebulous shadow. In fact, if you take a look at my shadow there, you can see it gets kind of fuzzy around the edges. Yeah, I see that. And that's not because I'm actually fuzzy around I do need a haircut, but it's not that I'm actually that fuzzy. But that's portions. If you were to look at the sun from that spot where it's fuzzy, you'd see the sun partially covered by me, but not completely. Okay, so that outer shadow is called the penumbra. And so when you're in the moon's penumbra, you see the moon cutting into the sun a little bit. Okay, but it's not totally blocking the sun. And then the darker inner shadow is called the umbra. So the umbra is the inner portion, the penumbra surrounds it. And I'm excited to see the umbra, because when you're under the umbra, the moon totally blocks the sun, and it's going to look kind of like it's night outside. It's going to drop to, at least, it won't be pitch black, but it'll drop to look like it's kind of twilight. You'll see stars, and so that'll be kind of exciting. Yeah. And you'll probably see the wildlife respond. Crickets might start chirping because they're going to think it's night out, and the birds will start acting like it's night, so it's going to be kind of fun. But it only lasts 2 minutes and 40 seconds. But you will see stars, you'll see planets as well. Short is not as real often. That's right, very short, yes. So 2 minutes, and actually here it's 2 minutes and 39 seconds is how long it's going to last. And we're going to see the first part where the penumbra is already in the United States. It's already in Oregon. In fact, the umbra's probably touched down by this time. And it's moving this way, traveling at, you can think of the shadow as traveling at 1,700 miles per hour, something like that. And so it'll be here in a little less than an hour. It'll be here. So kind of amazing. And at 11:57 and 30 seconds, the penumbra will hit here. And when we look at the sun, we'll see a little nibble taken out of it as the moon crosses. And then we'll be able to watch for the next hour and a half as the moon moves in and covers more and more of the sun. And the sky will start to darken a little bit, even before totality. And even before it's completely covered, you'll start to see, you probably will be able to see Venus, even before it's covered. And then when it's completely covered, you'll see Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, some of the brighter stars. So it should be really spectacular. The sun's basically a ball of hydrogen gas, hydrogen, a little bit of helium. It's got, it's divided into sections though, based on the way the material moves and the way the energy is transmitted. So you got the inner core, and that's where the energy is generated, where hydrogen is fused into helium, and that produces the power for the sun. And then that power, that energy leaks away through what's called the radiative zone. The radiative zone is the inner 2/3 of the sun. So that's most of the sun is the radiative zone, at least in terms of radius, okay? And then once it gets out beyond that, it goes into what's called the convection zone. And the convection zone has large overturning motions, and that's called convection, and that's why it gets that name. At the top of the convection zone is the photosphere. And the photosphere is the really important layer because that's the layer you would normally see if you look at the sun. That's why it has the name photo, okay? Like photosynthesis or photograph, something you see. That's the visible surface of the sun.
I see.
And it's about, the core of the sun's about 15 million degrees Celsius. And as it goes out, the temperature cools because it's expanding out. It's filling a larger volume. So by the time it gets to the surface, it's 6,000 degrees Kelvin.
I thought it was hot here.
Yeah, it feels like it. You can feel it today. But now, once you get beyond the photosphere, there's another layer just beyond the photosphere, and it's called the chromosphere. Now, normally you can't see the chromosphere because it's quite faint. The photosphere just is blindingly bright, and this thin chromosphere, which is just beyond it, is very faint because the chromosphere is basically only giving off significant radiation, significant light in one frequency, or mainly one frequency, and that's the frequency that corresponds to what we call the Balmer series. The hydrogen, it has to do with the way the electrons transition in a hydrogen atom. When they drop from level 3 to level 2, they give off light of a specific color, and it's a very specific red, but it's not very much of it. And so it'll be red, yeah. The chromosphere is red, yeah. And a very rich red too, because most things in astronomy are not terribly colorful, but the chromosphere is. And that's where it gets its name. Chromo means color. So it's the color sphere that surrounds the visible photosphere. Now normally you can't see the chromosphere, but when the moon covers the photosphere, just around the edge, the leading edge of the moon, you will see the chromosphere with your naked eyes. And at that point, and only at that point, only once the photosphere is completely covered, you can look directly at the sun with your eyes and it won't hurt you. Normally you don't want to look at the sun with your eyes because it has dangerous ultraviolet light and it can damage your eyes. But at that moment you'll see the chromosphere probably, and it's a very small sphere, so eventually the moon will cover probably most of the chromosphere as well. But you will see on the edge of the moon, you'll see some red, and you might even see some prominences, which look like these little red loops that will come up around the sun like that. And you'll notice them because they're very, very red. And at that point, you know, when the sun's totally covered, you can even point your binoculars up at it and get a much better view. And you'll see just look around the edge of the moon there for a little bit of red, and that's the chromosphere and these prominences, which are pieces of the chromosphere that have been carried up by the magnetic field. And they're spectacular and they're beautiful. Now, the only way you can see the chromosphere naked eye like that is during a total solar eclipse. So I've never seen the chromosphere with my unaided vision. Now today we have instruments that astronomers have designed that allow us to see the chromosphere directly. And so the SOHO spacecraft, which is what I used in my doctoral research, it points directly at the sun, and it can single out that hydrogen wavelength, and it can see the chromosphere and things like that. But the only way you can see it is during a total solar eclipse. So that's one of the things you're going to get to see, and I'm excited about that. Beyond the chromosphere is a much larger layer called the corona. And the corona is big. Okay, it's going to extend out. If the diameter is something like that, the corona might extend out to that much. Okay, and it's not spherical exactly. The corona kind of makes these wavy sort of. Well, you'll get to see it, but you'll see this glow around the sun, and that's its upper. You can think of it as the upper sun's atmosphere. It's very, very thin, but it's very hot. Now, see the chromosphere actually. Interestingly, the photosphere remember 6,000 degrees Kelvin or Celsius. And you get a little bit beyond that, the chromosphere actually drops to 4,000, and then it goes back up again for reasons that are not completely understood, but there's some kind of energy transfer. It's actually get hotter. Yeah, and in the corona, it actually can get up to 1,000,000 degrees in the corona, but it's very, very thin, very thin. And so that's one thing you'll notice, and you'll be able to see that throughout the whole eclipse. I mean, or once totality starts. Once the photosphere is covered, you'll have no problem seeing this corona, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Because I've seen it in spacecraft, but I've never seen it naked eye. That's the only way you can see the corona, naked eye, is during a solar eclipse. So you look for the chromosphere and the corona. And the corona is just kind of like a crown. In fact, that's what the word means. It means crown, like the sun's wearing a big crown. Okay.
What color will it be?
It won't be red. It'll be probably kind of a bluish color, but yeah, it probably won't be vividly colored at all. It'll be faint enough that you won't see a whole lot of color to it. But yeah, but we'll find out here in just a little bit. So the other thing you'll notice, you'll be able to see stars and planets. Just to the left of the sun, I believe, will be the star Regulus. It'll be real close to the sun. And of course, normally you'd have no hope of seeing a star that close to the sun in angle, but it'll be there. That's Regulus. And then a little further to the left, you'll see Mercury, which is normally hard to see from Earth because it's always close to the sun. And when the sun's up, normally it's daytime, but we have a rare exception today. So you'll be able to see Mercury. And then on the other side, you'll see the brightest object besides the sun itself, Venus. Yeah, and then way off, I think you'll see Jupiter way off to the side as well. So we'll get to see several planets, and Mars will be in the mix too. But Mars is on the other side of the sun, so it won't be real bright, but you'll be very red, so you might notice Mars as well. It'll be, I think it's on the right side near Venus, but we'll take a look there. So yeah, so that's kind of a rundown of what you're going to see.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. Remember, before the moon's total, you don't want to look directly at the sun, right? But once it's total, you can look right at it. The reason, of course, you don't want to look right at the sun before totality is that photosphere gives off, first of all, it gives off a lot of light. It's not just that it gives off dangerous ultraviolet light, it just gives off a lot of light, and that in itself is dangerous. If you've ever taken a magnifying glass and to a piece of paper, you can set it on fire with the sun. That's what your eye's doing to your retina. It's taking that light and it's focusing it on the back of your retina, okay? You don't want to do that to your retina, okay? And then, of course, some of the light is light you don't even see. It's ultraviolet light. And sunglasses like these filter out most of the ultraviolet light, but they still don't filter out most of the light. So even with sunglasses, you don't want to look directly at the sun. You need special Eclipse glasses to do that because you don't want that ultraviolet radiation. And I do have beads that can pick up ultraviolet radiation. And these beads that you see right here, they're normally white. You see those beads? But once I expose them to sunlight, they turn colored. Okay,
Yeah,
and almost instantly. I've never seen them turn that fast. So we're getting a lot of ultraviolet light today. You can see those. So, and if I had done it smart, I would have put my sunglasses over it. And one section then would be white because it would not have turned. I've done that before. And it's kind of neat. So, a few different ways we can look at the sun. One of them, of course, is Eclipse glasses. That's a good way to do it. I'm going to pull those out. Here's one set, and with these you just put them on and you can look right at the sun, so go ahead and give that a try. And I got another pair as well.
I see the moon.
That would be the sun. I like it.
Here's another pair. Try those.
It looks like the moon. I see the moon. I see it. It looks like
Good.
wow.
Yeah, I can see
It really dims it, doesn't it?
That's weird
Yeah.
looking.
So that blocks about
That's cool.
99.999% of the light.
That's
So,
really cool.
yep. Have a look through those ones too if you want. They look different.
Okay.
This one makes it look kind of white, and those ones make it look kind of orange.
Yeah, orange.
So that's one safe way to look at it.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
that's what makes it orange. Oh yeah, that one makes it
Wow.
orange.
That's cool.
Cool.
I like that one better.
So that's what you're going to use until the moon completely covers the sun. Just before the moon completely covers the sun, you're going to see it's covering more and more of it, and the light's kind of going over to one side of the sun, okay? And you'll see it kind of concentrate into a point, but there'll still be a little bit of a ring there. It'll look like a diamond ring, and so that's the diamond ring phase, and it's just before totality. And just when that fades, the moon's not a perfect sphere. It's got mountains and valleys on it, right? And so what you're going to see is just before totality, you're going to see little places where the sunlight's still peeking through the valleys in the moon.
Cool.
And they call that Bailey's beads.
Cool.
And so you might want to be watching for that as well. Also, right before it goes total, you might have a quick, I mean, it's tempting because you're watching the sun, but take a quick look around. Sometimes you'll see what are called shadow bands. And especially on white surfaces, you'll see these sort of ripples that'll move across. And they're not exactly sure what causes that, but it might have something to do with the atmospheric turbulence and the light being nearly a point source. And so you get these little bands. And it's the only time you see those is during a total solar eclipse.
Cool.
So we might want to look for those as well. So look for the diamond ring phase, then Bailey's beads, and then the next thing you want to look for is the chromosphere, because the moon might cover that up pretty quick as well. And then beyond that, you'll see the corona, and you'll take a look around and see other stars, and hopefully the crickets will start chirping.
That'll
And
be cool.
yeah, so any questions?
How long does the eclipse last from beginning to end?
From beginning to end, it lasts a few hours. It's going to start at 11:57 local time in 30 seconds, and then the total phase starts at 1:25. So it's an hour and a half in and another hour and a half out, roughly. Yeah. So about 3 hours. Yep. Other questions?
I don't think so.
One of the other methods we're going to use is the projection method. It'll take me a little bit to get that set up, but then that's where you take binoculars and you point them at the sun as if you were going to look through them, but of course you don't want to do that. And then you'll get an image. Once they're perfectly aligned, you'll get an image on a piece of paper, and when you focus the binoculars, you'll get a beautiful image of the sun. Yeah. And what I do is I bring cardboard to kind of put around the binoculars so that it blocks the ambient light, and that increases the contrast, and you get a better image. So that's one of the things we'll do here. I'll get that set up here pretty quick, and then we'll have a look at the sun nice and big. And I also have filters like that, but for my binoculars.
Oh yeah.
And so you'll be able to, once those filters are on, you'll be able to point the binoculars up, look at the sun directly. Yeah. So we'll try that as well.
So you said you've seen lunar?
Yeah, I've seen lots of lunar eclipses. And
How old were you when you saw your first?
I was pretty young when I saw my first one. Yeah. But the thing about a lunar eclipse is it's visible to everyone on the night side of Earth.
Oh, cool.
Okay? Because it's Earth's shadow falling on the moon. So as long as you can see the moon, you can see a solar eclipse. Unless it's cloudy, you're going to see a lunar eclipse, or unless you happen to be on the day side of Earth, and then you're out of luck. But that's why I've seen a lot of lunar eclipses. But to see a solar eclipse, you have to be under the shadow. And so the folks that are they're back in Texas that didn't make the trip with us, they'll see a partial eclipse, but they won't see the total eclipse. They won't get to see it drop like it's night, which is what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be cooler.
Yeah.
That's another thing. The temperature should drop about 10 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah.
For that.
I'm all for that too. Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit warm out.
That fast?
It'll taper down to maybe 10 degrees below. Some cases, sometimes more, but I'm guessing about 10 degrees. Yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
And then it'll slowly ramp back up afterwards. It's not instantaneous, but yeah.
How long does a partial eclipse last?
A partial eclipse, it depends on how partial it is. Okay, so if you're at the very edge, where if you look at a map that shows the eclipse zones, we're in the 100% zone. We're going to see 100% of the eclipse, and there's 90%, 80%, 70%, and so on. If you're down at like 0, if you're just inside it, it's just minutes. And you'll just see a little chunk of the sun taken out, and then it's over. Okay, so it's maximum at totality, so 3 hours, and then you go. If 50%, it might be halfway in between. It might be an hour and a half, something like that. So it just depends on how partial it is.
Cool.
Good stuff. Any other questions?
How much do these cost?
Oh, they're cheap. They're like $1, something like that. Unless you bought them just before this event, and then they're a lot.
Yeah.
more expensive. I've had those for years.
Cool.
I've had those for a long time because I use those for partial eclipses. Good? All right.
Yeah.
All right, we got about 25 minutes to go.
Cool.
Okay, guys, have a look at this.
Okay.
Got a good image here by projection, so we got the binocs pointed up, lens cap over one of them. Get a nice good image here on this piece of paper, and this is a safe way to look at it, and everybody can look at it at the same time too, which is kind of nice. So you got a good little chunk taken out of it now, so we've just started the eclipse. It'll be another almost hour and a half before it reaches totality. You got 4 sunspots here. You can see 3 bright ones, or 3 dark ones, I should say, right there. And there's a 4th in there, and then you got 2 over here by the limb. Something else you might notice, you notice how the center of the sun is brighter than the limb. Can you see that?
I see that.
That's a phenomenon. It's called limb darkening. And the reason for that is the sun is hotter on the inside than it is at the surface, but it's gas. And so it's like looking into fog. You can see something that's a little way into fog, but the further it is, the harder it is to see. Well, when you're looking at the edge, you're skimming along the surface where it's cooler. Whereas here in the middle, you're actually looking into the sun a little bit. And so you're able to see where it's hotter and brighter. And so that's why you have limb darkening. If the sun got cooler on the inside, you have limb brightening. So that's just one of the things that you can see here. Isn't that fascinating?
It is.
They're getting a little wind now, so that's the problem. This tripod's a little weak, but yeah, fun, huh?
Yeah.
Try moving it around. I want to see me. Oh,
Amazing.
that's no problem.
Ready for the...
So small.
Okay, you can have a look. Quick look. Diamond ring phase. There's a diamond ring phase. Look at it. Oh. Bailey's beads. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Amazing. You can see Regulus to the left there. Venus is. Look at that. Oh my goodness. There, yeah, I see the Chromosphere on the lower right. It's about ready to come out of it. Yeah. It's about ready to come out of it. Blood red. Oh, it's beautiful. Here it comes. There's a diamond ring. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, amazing. Oh, oh, wonderful. Amazing. Amazing.
Wow, that was
Wow.
wow, that was. Where'd it go?
Well, we're on the other side of it now, so the sun's reappearing on the right, and we're just a few minutes after it. Pretty epic, pretty amazing. And we probably won't stay for last contact, but that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're doing this again.
It's not even gonna go.
Oh yeah.